it's not just championship ready level players as well. It's also physical players, aggressive players, captain material players, leaders. We did a podcast that went out last week, Dad, and it was about our best starting 11. And we referenced players like Martin Granger, Stephen Carr, Barry Ferguson. Welcome back to BCFC Royal Blue. And as we're currently in the middle of summer, things have been particularly quiet with all things Birmingham City. But now the transfer market is officially open, we should start to get a few more rumours and a few more transfers through as the pre-season starts to get underway. But until that happens, myself and Dad have done a couple of videos around questions from fans, and we're going to continue that on from our video from Monday. So Dad, shall I just follow you the first question?
Yeah, go for it.
So this comes from two people, I guess same theming. So the first one is BCFC Fanzine TV. With Craig Gardner's departure and a new director of football expected, what do you think the club's recruitment strategy should be in the Championship? Continue investing heavily in young, high-potential players for long-term value, or bring in more proven Championship experience to maximise our chances of promotion? And again, similar question here, theme. Ralph Wesdeck, or Ruth Wesdeck, apologies, not too sure the exact pronunciation of that handle. Have you got any thoughts on Craig Gardner's replacement?
Yeah, so on Craig Gardner's replacement, we know that there's three names currently rumoured to be of interest, but we don't know for sure who that will be. That'll be Christian Speakman. What's his name? Ashby.
Dan Ashworth.
Dan Ashworth. Yeah, Dan Ashworth and our own Mike Rigg. Like I think I've said in the podcast before, I know nothing about director of footballs. You know, we don't. We obviously we can know their history. We know that Dan Ashworth was like Man United, Man City, wasn't he? Christian Speakman was at Birmingham City as a coach, I think, and then he went to Sunderland as their director of football. But besides what the role is and how good they'll be, I don't know. So I think we're going to have to leave that to the Blues to do all the diligence to make sure that we get exactly the right person. It's such an important role because we know that and has been over the last couple of seasons, our recruitment has been questioned.
Yeah.
But I think to answer the question from the first part from BCFC Fanzine, do we continue to invest heavily in the young or high potential players long term? Or proven championship, I think it's got to be all three.
Balance.
It has to be, and I know that's sort of probably a sort of a hedging your bets type of thing, but it has to be. You can't just get all young players. You can't get just championship experienced players. You have to have a balance, and this is why I think this new role is so crucial. We need to get someone, I think, who has got the experience to know what type of mix of players we actually need, and to get them in as well. So it needs to be somebody with the knowledge, but also the contacts and the experience. So I'm just trusting that Blues will make the right appointments. I've got no particular preference in terms of who that would be. But I say for us to progress in the way that we want to be, I think this is probably the most important appointment that they'll make all summer.
Well, the biggest name being floated about seems to be Dan Ashworth. I mean, you think about what he's done at Brighton and Newcastle in particular. Like at Newcastle, he got Anthony Gordon over the line, Isak over the line. At Brighton, I believe he was behind the Casado transfer and things like that. So he has pulled in some big names to some big clubs. And he seems to be the one that's catching the most amount of, I guess, excitement, to say. But I'm not clued up on directors of football, Dad. I don't know massive amounts about them. You know, I'm all about the players on the pitch and the clubs and stuff like that. So I know it's a massive role. I know what the role entails, but I haven't got like a research book with the best of sporting directors in the world.
But I think you mentioned some credentials there for Dan Ashworth in terms of his former team.
Yeah.
But on the question, mate, so what's your thoughts on whether we need to get more proven championship players in or younger players? What's your thoughts?
So my word, which I kind of apologetically interrupted you with, was balance, and I use that word very specifically because you're right. We need to get all of them in. However, and Blues fans are probably bored of me saying this, if we want to be seriously competitive in the Championship and we want to get ourselves out of the Championship, we need to get more Championship-ready players.
Yeah.
We need to get more players who just know how to get you out of this league. I think we've taken a few gambles this year on the European players. We've got some players in from Premier League, but they're the youngsters. And I think you said recently on a podcast, Dad, why are we developing other clubs' talent for them? It's always a gamble, isn't it? You never know really what you're going to get. We need players that know how to get you out of the Championship. Yeah. Again, Ollie McBurney comes to mind. That centre-back from Millwall, I always forget his name, the one that's a brick wall, is massive. You've got certain players who would just know how to get you out of the Championship, or at least know how to be competitive. And what worries me is when we go 1-0 down away from home, last season, we never looked like getting back into the game. We haven't got those characters either that need to lead. And I think that comes down to me of having that kind of championship level experience. I'm not devaluing the other half of the question. With the rule changes to the financial regulations, we also have to develop in young talent as well. But there has to be a balance. But if I was to put a percentage on it, I'd like to angle that slightly more to the championship-ready players.
Yeah, I think we did that podcast, which we had some really interesting reaction to it in terms of what the benefit of actually loaning young players from other teams is now under these SCR rules. I think there was one comment that we had that I think slightly misinterpreted what we were saying. One person was saying that you're contradicting yourself a little bit. You're saying that you need to get championship-ready players, but you're saying you need to play the youngsters. We weren't actually saying that. What we're saying is we need to develop our academy system so that we have an obvious and clear route where possible into the first team. But it isn't just about that. It's about developing players to add value. So they might not ever make the first team, but you can still develop them to make money out of them. Because that's what this is all about, isn't it? So that balance is really important in terms of we do need more championship-ready players. I read a stat somewhere that it was last season championship experience. We were 23 out of 24 because we went abroad, didn't we?
Yeah. So
we've got good players in. If you don't know the championship, you get found out like we 100%. Have. So I think next season will be slightly different because these players have experienced the championship now, so we should be better. But I do think it needs to be a balance of all three. But it does really emphasise the importance of this director of football that we're going to get in.
Yeah. No, it's a good point, Dad. Now, I didn't see any of the comments on that video, but I think that's a really valid point. It wasn't necessarily about choosing one or the other. Championship players have their value, but then it's also about it's a business, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have to buy in players cheap and sell them high. That's how Brighton do it, Bournemouth do it. A lot of clubs in the Premier League who have sustained that model and stayed there have done really good business over the last 5 to 10 years.
Just like Hull City. They last season were under a transfer embargo, yet they got in experienced championship players for next to nothing. And they got promoted.
It's mad, isn't it? Shows it can be done.
Shows you it can be done.
Shows it can be done. It shows the power of getting those kind of players in. Yeah. Okay, so a question from Foggy, a regular contributor to the channel as well. Thanks, Foggy. So, hi guys, love these Q&A shows. My question is, if Blues have 20 million to spend this summer, would you rather see it invested in proven championship players or younger talent with resale value? I guess it's coming back onto the...
It is, yeah.
I guess we kind of answered that, but do you want to give any more details?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a couple of others that had similar questions. We had, this podcast as well. I've tried to categorise the questions into themes. So you're going to see quite a fair few themes appearing throughout this podcast from questions that you guys have asked. So Paul O'Neill asked a similar question. Because of the new rules coming to force next season, we will be looking for some homegrown players, or will we just be buying players with experience? And then Peter Field, what type of player would you like to see in the summer? We have sort of answered that already, Matt, haven't we, really? What we've just spoken about in terms of getting this balance between identifying good younger talent and developing through the academy system, but also this need to have or add championship quality players to the squad as well.
And for me, to take that even further on Peter's question, it's not just championship ready level players as well. It's also physical players, aggressive players, captain material players, leaders. We did a podcast that went out last week, Dad, and it was about our best starting 11. And we referenced players like Martin Granger, Stephen Carr, Barry Ferguson. Those aren't just players who are good at the championship level. You can go 1-0 down, 2-0 down away from home, and you could still win that game 2-1, 3-2, 4-2, because they carry you through. And I want to see players who are a bit more physical, a bit more aggressive, don't take any prisoners. You know, the kind of players that we turn up with, and you know you're not going to get pushed around.
Yeah.
You just know it. And I think sometimes we have been a little bit soft and too easy to play against.
That's a really good point. I'm just going back to our away form last year when if we had those type of players that could drag the team forward, 100%. Drag us out the mire, get us going again. That's what we lacked last season, and we basically just turned over so easily away in so many games last season. Whereas if those type of players you're talking about, they're not that easy to find because obviously they're in high demand, aren't they? And therefore they're normally on contracts with other clubs. But you've got to find players that can lead. I think Christoph Clara, our captain, good player. Does a decent job, but I think I'd like to see him be a bit more vocal on the pitch to the players, because I think he shows leadership. So when you hear him in interviews, he's spoken very well about the way
carries himself well.
He likes to lead by example, which he does. He's always obviously talking about what they do in training. I'd like to see that translated onto the pitch a little bit, to be honest, because we had that conversation, didn't we, with other captains we've had in the past, where they just seem to concede a goal when everyone's heads down and no one's geeing anybody up. So I think in terms of type of player, I'd like to see more. But again, I think Matt, that does link into the fact that those type of players are usually the ones with experience, which we talked about. So we need those championship.
They go hand in glove,
Yeah.
but we just need, again, a bit more captain material. I'm not saying we have to flood the team with huge personalities and loads of captains, but a couple sprinkled in makes such a difference. It really does. And as I said, that championship experience plays into often players who have that leadership material as well.
Yeah.
Cool. So next question down from Ashley McCarthy. I think this is a really good question, actually. And it says, name 3 things the new sporting director needs to do.
Okay. Do you want to go first or shall I go first?
You can go first on this one.
Yeah. So, it's again, we've mentioned already that this is such a big role now for Birmingham, particularly with the vision the club have got. So in no particular order, I've actually thought about 3 things that I think that, they need to be basically asking in the interview. So, basically what you're going to do and how you're going to review the scouting system to ensure there's a balance of physical scouting and data. And, we hear about all the data, but we're not too sure of the process of actually going to watch young players. And not just young players, but any player. So, I'd like to see some, evidence of that we're not just looking at data and AI and all stats and all these wonderful models they have now. What are we going to do? We're developing a scouting team that's going to go and actually view players. Because there's things you won't see unless you go and see them, their temperament. What happens if they go through a bad tackle? What happens if they, are they physical? Those type of things. So the first thing is reviewing the whole scouting system, not just for young players, but for the whole thing, and also as well lead from the front and drive the recruitment strategy. So basically, we're looking for a leader, someone who is going to challenge the likes of Chris Davis and Knighthead and the owners when they say they want a certain type of player. Someone who's going to actually sort of have their input and say, well, I don't think we should go for this player, or I think we should go for this player because of this reason. And also as well, so basically we want a leader. We don't want a passive person who's basically go and get this player. Okay, I'll go and get them.
Yeah.
We want someone who's got a voice.
Push back.
Push back. Yeah.
You don't want a yes man.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And above all, and this is an obvious one, their role has to be ultimately to bring in the right profile of players. That if nothing else, that is their job, isn't it? And I think that's where we've failed in the past, that we've had players that we've been brought in that just have not suited what we need at a particular time.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And mine are very similar themed. You've gone into far more detail than I have, but I've kept mine a little bit lighter. Number 1 for me is steer the recruitment in the right direction. Again, I cannot add any more to what you've just said, really, exactly what I was getting at. Second one, you kind of alluded to it maybe, but my second one is academy integration. So, we talk about young players, we talk about Blues being second or bottom of the league for giving young players fresh chances. I think there's a disalignment, or not a misalignment. Disalignment's not a real word, is it? There's a misalignment between the academy and the first team and the path for players to develop at Birmingham City. So making that a bit more clear, making sure young talent has a pathway or at least guidance to know what they need to do to get to the first team or at least have a crack at it. And my third one, and this is, I guess, a small thing-ish in terms of it's not big, like a specific thing, but it's a consistent messaging across the club. I feel like, Chris Davies comes out in the press and says something. Tom Wagner comes out in the press and says something. And sometimes I think as a club we're not also necessarily aligned.
Yeah.
Like Tom Wagner says we want to get to the Premier League and, we want playoffs or we want automatic promotion, whatever that messaging would be. And then Chris Davies comes out and says, no, to finish where we finish is a really good achievement in the league. It's like, there's a disconnect there. So I think there needs to be a clear and consistent messaging from the club as well.
Yeah, fair enough, yeah.
So, okay, let's move on to the next question from Gary Bagnall. Thank you very much for the question. Realistically, which one player would you want Blues to sign and why?
Yeah, again, there's so many players and so many positions. I think we definitely need a top quality goalkeeper.
That's where I focused.
But I haven't focused on that.
I focused on goalkeeper.
Yeah, we need a top quality goalkeeper. And I mean a proper, experienced, good goalkeeper. But I think I'd like to see, we talked already in this podcast about leaders. I'd like to see like a sort of a Matt Grimes type of midfielder, someone who can lead and also can control games on the pitch. I think that role, people I think will also say that we've lacked a real high quality number 10 as well. So to name players, and also, if you look at every position, goalkeeper, defence, midfield and forward, including obviously number 10 in the forward line, a striker like an Ollie McBurney type of style of player, old style, no nonsense type of player, not fancy, Just knows
Physical.
how to put the ball in the
Gets
net.
himself about.
So for me, if I had to pick, a player, I would go for. We won't get Matt Grimes because he's going to be playing in the Premier League, isn't he? But
Some of that profile.
Some of that profile will be a Matt Grimes.
So I have focused on keeper, and I've gone for 2 levels here because the word realistically is subjective depending on who you talk to. Some people will think everyone's achievable, and some people will set their bar a little bit lower. But I think Carl Rushworth, remember at Coventry last season, obviously he was on loan from Brighton, so technically he's Brighton's player. I thought he had a fantastic season, really good goalkeeper. But again, the realistic question, is he now going to be wanting playing Premier League football?
Well, are Coventry not going to sign him or looking to sign him?
We don't know. Yeah. That's the thing, and Cov could very much press that button and sign him.
I saw something on social media when they had their parade around Coventry. They put like a thing for, and he was like pretending to sign it, wasn't he? So I think he wants to sign for Coventry. But as you know, it's not always the case.
No, and again, I think I'm kind of going with your style here of a kind of a profile of a keeper I'd like. I think Carl Rushworth's fantastic. And another one who would be maybe a bit more of a gamble because he's a League One goalkeeper, Sam Tickle from Wigan. I like his ability to have the ball at his feet. He's quite calm. I think he would fit really well into a Chris Davies team, and he would do better with better players around him. But he's always a bit of a gamble, isn't it, taking them from League One? But
I think he's been linked, hasn't he, with quite a few teams he has.
He's a good player.
And I think he definitely will be out of League One next season. I think he'll be so maybe if he's available. I don't know, but
decided to focus on keeper for me.
Yeah, okay.
So final and last question, Dad, is from Zefsky. So have you guys ever thought about what's going to happen to the old St.Andrews? Also, any particular mementos from the old ground you'd like to get from the scrap man? I remember my neighbour going on about getting a piece of the old gate after the refurb was done in the 90s. Great podcast. We'll bump into you both in the Tilton someday and say hi. Keep it on.
Yeah, well, I think the obvious thing will be the seats. If you could get the seats, our season tickets, we've had them for quite a few years now, haven't we?
Yeah.
But I think, I'm not too sure. I mean, people say take bits of the pitch. Well,
I'll take the Trevor statue. Ringing that out.
On top of your roof of your car.
Yeah, I think my wife might have something to say about that.
Yeah,
a big Trevor statue in the garden.
So you actually thought grander than me. I didn't really think of that. Have all the floodlights or something like that. Yeah. But no, I mean, not really. I mean, we're going to be moving. It's going to be very emotional, and I would like to take a memory with me. But most people's memories are going to be there in their mind, aren't they?
Yeah.
But if anything, maybe our seats. I'm sure they'll give. I don't think they'll be putting our old seats in the new stadium. Put it that way.
Yeah. I want to take.
It's not like the old owners.
I want to take the sign from the toilets, the laminated one that says hot water.
Yeah. That'd be worth a fortune in years.
Exactly.
Something never happened.
I tell you what. Obviously, my first 2 answers are jokey, but I would love to get some part of in the Tilton where we have our beers, Dad, and it's got like a montage of the footballers down the years, and it's got like Teberley, and it's got Wembley, it's got it's got Stern John on there, it's got all the players. Again, it's a bit big to take down and have, but I'd love to get a snippet of that somewhere. That'd be cool.
You'd be interested in the last game, and you can imagine all the fans coming with their spanners and hammers, and
exactly.
not they do every game actually. Yeah. But I'm not really that precious, to be honest. Obviously, I will be looking forward to the new stadium. I will obviously be I'll be sad leaving St Andrews. But
do you reckon the club will let people take stuff?
I'd imagine that things like seats and stuff, possibly.
Yeah.
I think the Blues players will take the seats anyway, probably. But and in terms of what will happen to the old St Andrews, it's going to be not there. I mean, the land's going to be worth some money, so that I presume they'll either use it as, I suppose you could potentially use it as a car park for the new stadium, or they'll sell it off and it'll be houses or something like that.
My gut tells me it'll be flats or houses or some sort of property because they can get. They'll sell the land and it'll be developed on, won't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Obviously, the sports quarter is a big area in terms of geographical size. So where you get quite a few if you was to make it into a car park, but it wouldn't be of that much value to the club as a car park. So I presume that they could. It'd be worth millions, I reckon, if they sold it for housing, because it's right on the edge of the city centre, isn't it?
It'd be an expensive piece of real estate, won't it?
Yeah.
But what if it is houses in Coventry, where Highfield Road was? You can go to like the bit where the centre spot was. The centre spot was, and I know Roker Park in Sunderland. Again, there's another centre spot.
I'm sure they'll do.
So they'll keep something. I'd like to think of the stadium in some regard, even if it's houses. They'll keep the centre spot location. But sad. That'll be a sad day, won't it? It'd be exciting on one hand, but on the other, it would be very sad to see St Andrews. The end of St Andrews. But that's everything, Dad. So as always, Birmingham City supporters, we would love to hear from you. Is there any questions there where you'd like to add your own input? There's some interesting ones there, and again, all relative to our experience as Blues fans and the memories that we have and attachment to the club. But we'd love to hear from you. Please let us know your thoughts. And if you liked the video specifically, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up and check us out on our social media channels. We have an X page, we have an Instagram page, and we're also over on Spotify, so you can listen to us or watch us over there. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel and press that bell icon so you get notified every time we post. And myself and Dad will see you on the next one, all about Birmingham City.